What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out the podcast. This is your host, Dan Giffen. Before we get started with today's episode with Ari Herstand, which is going to be great, I want to give you a couple updates. First of all, if you have never heard of or been to Ableton's annual conference, Loop, they just announced it's going to be in Berlin. It's a 3-day summit for music makers. Berlin is where Ableton's headquarters are. It's going to be from April 24th to the 26th, 2020. They've got a big lineup of amazing artists using next level technology and all kinds of different people sharing tips and things. It was honestly one of the most inspiring events I've ever been to when I went in 2019. Highly recommend it. It's an application process to go. So you can apply, just go to ableton.com and you can find out more about the event. Definitely encourage you to sign up and apply to go. It would be worth the ticket and the trip. It'll be an amazing time. I'll be there, and the whole Ableton family will be there. Also, wanted to give you a quick heads up with Live Producers Online, my website where I teach and train and help people reach their goals producing music using Ableton Live. I am actually opening up the membership now. So all of the courses, every webinar, everything that I have done or other Ableton certified trainers have done on the website is now accessible for the monthly membership. Price will go up in the future, but right now you can access all courses, downloads, webinars, everything. Right now, starting with the basic plan, $50 a month. You'll also have access to a private Facebook group to get ongoing support for all your Ableton Live questions from me and other trainers. So check that out, liveproducersonline.com. I'm super excited for today's episode with Ari Herstand. He's taught me a lot of different things as far as the music industry goes. He has a new book coming out we're going to talk about. And even though he is not an Ableton producer himself, he still has a lot of wisdom to share with all of us who are making music. So yeah, it's going to be a great episode. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Giffen. And today I am super excited. We have Ari Herstand on the podcast. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining the podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, same. For anybody who doesn't know Ari, he's a singer-songwriter, a music industry expert. He is the author of the best-selling How to Make It in the New Music Business book, and he's coming out with a new version very, very soon, which we're going to talk about a lot today, and I'm excited for that. I read your previous edition, and it was super helpful for me booking shows, just growing my following online, doing a lot of things as an independent artist. But Ari's also performed tons of shows around the country. He's opened for artists like Ben Folds, Cake, Matt Nathanson, and others. He's the leader of the band Brassroots District, which is really cool. I'm also really into funk music.
Nice.
And, you also run the successful blog aristake.com, which is great for anybody who wants to sharpen up their music industry news of sorts in different ways as an artist. I also feel like we have some more things in common. Like I know you used to work at Starbucks. I also did as well. Yeah.
Nice.
Good old barista. I was terrible at my job because I was so the right brain creative ADD kid growing up. So I couldn't task anything and I was just running in circles, making lattes.
Oh yeah. I was writing songs from behind the bar. I was humming. I'd lose track. I'd get on a kick and there'd be a line of 12 drinks just lined up and I'd be sitting here just oh wait, this is the end. I'd be pulling out my phone to try to write lyrics real quick and they'd be yelling at me. I'm like, oh man, this is not going to work.
Yeah. And that was the moment where you're like, maybe I should just pursue music instead.
Right.
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, just tell us a little bit more about yourself for people who maybe don't know much about you at all. How did you get started with music and summarize how that led you to where you're at today, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. So I started my music career in Minneapolis. I actually went to school at the University of Minnesota initially as a classical trumpet and music education major to be a high school band director someday. But very quickly when I got there, I realized I did not want to be a high school music teacher. And I kind of started performing around the University of Minnesota as a singer-songwriter. And then I realized I need to be a performing musician. I need to be a songwriter. This is what I want to do. And so I transferred to a music industry school where I studied music business and songwriting in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I got in and out of there in a year and a half. But this was now right around the 2005 or so. And so what we were learning in music business classes there was kind of how the industry had operated up until that point. And so, mind you, what they taught us there was basically the only way to have a career in music successfully is to get a record deal and to get signed. And so this is what I was taught in school. And so, we spent one of our classes, the entire class was how to negotiate a major record label contract. I'm like, sweet. So I got out of school. I'm like, I am set. I know I need to get a record deal and I know how to negotiate it. So as soon as I finished school, I'm like, all right, where's my record deal? I'm ready to start my music career. Because they didn't tell you exactly. They're like, they didn't say how to get the deal. They're just like, oh, if you want to be a musician, you have to get a deal. I'm like, okay, cool. So where's my deal? And that was like kind of the traditional thinking, was just like, that's just what everyone said. And that's what all the music business books were teaching. So I got out and I realized very quickly that like, all right, I have two options here. I can either sit around and wait to get this so-called, this record deal that they said has to come, or I can kind of figure out how to make a music career happen on my own. So I chose the latter, and I just started figuring shit out on my own and figuring out how to build a music career. And, I started in Minneapolis, but then built up around the Midwest and then around the country. And I got to a point where I was drawing 800 people to my shows in Minneapolis. I was selling out shows in a 5-state region, touring quite a bit, getting songs placed on TV shows, charting on iTunes, doing this all independently without a record label, without a manager, without a booking agent, kind of just figuring that out as I went, making a ton of mistakes, but making it work. And after a while, I started to get a bunch of questions from other musicians, initially in the Minneapolis scene, but then around the country as I was touring more colleges and high schools and festivals and stuff like that. Asking me questions like how I was doing this, like without any help and any support. Like, how'd you get a song on TV? And like, how did you book this tour? And how did you sell out that show? But they'd also ask me like, hey, this manager approached me. Should I sign this contract, or is this a good deal? Or, I'm working out this deal with this club. And I would get back to everybody. But then word spread that if you have a question about the music business, go ask Ari. And so my inbox was just flooded with messages from musicians all over the country. Yeah. And it got to a point where I just didn't have time to respond to everybody. So my brother's a web developer, and we just kind of put up this blog, Ari's Take, and basically all the answers to the most frequently asked questions I put up there. And then anytime I learned anything in my career, I would write about it. So if I got screwed by a club last night at a show, I'm like, yo, this is what happened to me. Don't let this happen to you. Here's how to prevent that. Yeah. Like real simple stuff. Or like I got my song on a TV show. I'm like, hey, this is how I got my song on a TV show. And this is how you can too. Yeah. And because I don't believe in competition in the music industry. I believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. I believe that we are one big musician community together, and that we're stronger when we work together, and that we don't like hoard information and we don't try, spite others or anything. Right. So I was really interested in passing along the knowledge that I was gaining. And then, Ari's Take kind of took off because there really weren't other resources out there. And then other publications asked me to write for them. And so I started writing for Digital Music News and Music Connection magazine and a bunch of others. And being able, writing for these other publications now gave me access to sit down with virtually anyone in the music industry that I wanted to talk to. And so that, before I was just some musician with a blog, now I was a writer for Digital Music News who could literally talk to number 3 at Spotify or the head of Red Light Management or this booking agent or any music supervisor I wanted. And so I took that responsibility very seriously. I'm like, okay, I'm the representative now of all musicians who wanted to ask these people questions, but no one had access. So I have to ask the questions.
The voice of the people. Yeah.
Right. And so, I took it super seriously, and I would be setting up interviews, sometimes 4 interviews a week, just to get as much knowledge and gain as much information as I could to then pass along to the other musicians. And so then that kind of, turned into the book deal. And I then came out with the book 3 years ago, How to Make It in the New Music Business. And that's kind of how where we are now, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's awesome, man. That's a good story. And you definitely speak to a lot of musicians who've like started from the ground up. And I think that's one thing that's really awesome about your blog. A lot of people can relate to you who are just like starting fresh, and you share tons of different tips for the average musician to actually be able to make a career in so many different ways.
Yeah, I thank you, and I try to pass along all the info. There are many pathways and to success in music, and success being just that's the first thing. Is success is in the eye of the beholder. Success is very personal, and it is defined differently by everyone. So no one can define success for you, and so that's what everyone needs to understand from the get-go and from the beginning is, what does success mean for them? And like personally, I define success as making a living, supporting the kind of lifestyle I'd like to have, doing what I love. That's success for me. And so it's really important for every artist to set up goals initially and like lay out concrete goals so they know what they're working towards. Because, there are artists who are making livings just digitally without touring, just putting up music on Spotify. And it's possible. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, but it definitely is possible. But then there are other artists like myself who love performing, and they want to perform and they want to tour. And so, doing the digital thing and just sitting at home year in, year out is not something that is as inspiring to them. And so I think every artist needs to understand what is, their goals are and what success looks like for them.
That's true, because I know a lot of people, especially listeners on this podcast, a lot of them are like producers, bedroom producers of sorts, especially in electronic music, because Ableton has that draw. And Ableton allows you to perform live on stage or just produce. And so you have a lot of people who maybe want to tour, maybe people who just want to upload music. So, and I love your book a lot. That I read the first edition, and it gives a lot of really practical tips on how people can make a career doing music. So I want to talk a lot about that too, and just gonna get in some of the book highlights and some different takeaways. Sure. But so like, who would you say your book is for? Like, if you had to describe it, like who's the perfect person to read?
Sure. It's primarily for independent artists, musicians, producers, songwriters. That's who it's written for. And it's written for the artists and producers and who want to make a living with music. That's basically it, but a lot of people, the book has kindly been adopted by music business classrooms. A lot of management companies are now requiring their managers to read it. The book is being read by, people at labels and booking agents. And so the book has been like widely read now in the music industry, but it is written primarily for musicians, producers, songwriters.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I love about your book, it talks a lot about spending your time carefully. You talk about something called like the 50-50 split, which is really good. You talk about rather than just spending all of your time making music, it's really valuable to be also really good with the business side of things. And you share a lot of practical tips as far as actually doing that.
Yeah, let's talk about the 50-50 split, because I think that's a really important concept. And I've actually updated that concept for the second edition of the book. So I can touch on that now.
Yeah, please.
But basically what the 50-50 split means is that 50% of your time should be spent on the art, the music, the creation of that music, creation of that art, and 50% of your time should be spent on the business, the promotion of that art. Now the 50-50 rule kicks into play once you start your music career. So for a lot of the people that are just getting started and they're honing their craft, and maybe they're in school, or maybe they're working behind the scenes and they haven't actually started their career yet, they're spending 100% of their time honing their craft, working on the art, creating their music. That's awesome. That's what they should be doing. Like that's the incubation stage. But once you've decided, okay, my music career has started and I'm ready to go for it, that's when the 50-50 rule kicks into play. Now, this isn't an everyday kind of thing. This isn't like, well, 1 p.m. hits, the alarm goes off and I have to flip to the business now. Like, that's not feasible or practical. Like, personally, I can't flip on my business brain and my artist brain, flip it on and off at the drop of a dime. Like if I'm going to be, if I'm going to be working on my music and I'm going to be songwriting or something, that's an entire day for me. So I won't do any business that day. I'm dedicating just this day. Yeah. So like when you're working on your album or on a new song or on your music, like, 80% of your time will be spent on just the music. And this, most days when you're kind of working it out. But then when you're going to release that album, then that ratio flips. Now 80% of your time will be spent on the business, the promotion of this album. And, maybe 20% will still be spent on the art. So this 50-50 rule is over the course of your entire career, it will work out that way. And I think a lot of artists and producers, they get caught up in the fun stuff, which is what we all want to be doing, which is the music. And they want to spend 100% of the time on their music, which sure, we all do. But if you actually want to make it your career, you actually have to put in some time and effort into the business. Mm-hmm. Now, I have also seen that go under the complete other end of the spectrum, believe it or not, for some artists who get so caught up with the business, they make like one album and they spend the next 5 years trying to just like work their career based on this one album. They don't write another song or get back in the studio or make, anything, make more music. And it's like, okay, your career would probably move a lot quicker if you kept working at your craft and your art and kept creating better and better music and, kept releasing a constant stream of music, because you're continuing to challenge yourself as an artist and become a better and better artist, producer, songwriter. Right. So, it's really important to just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, this 50-50 rule over the course of your entire career. Mm-hmm. But now the 50-50 rule isn't just about your time. It's also about your money. And so 50% of your money should be spent on the development and creation of your art, buying gear, all of that stuff, and studio time if you don't have your own home studio, hiring players, like that's all the creation of the art. And then 50% of your money should be spent on the promotion and marketing of that art. Mm-hmm. Now, it sounds simple enough, but I know I see so many artists who are like, okay, they price out their album. It's going to be like, all right, it's going to be $10,000 for me to make this record. So they run a Kickstarter for $10,000. They get $10,000. They spend $12,000 on their album. And then when it's time to release that album, they have $27 to their name. And then they wonder why no one's paying attention to their music. Right. So like even the greatest music ever made needs a bit of marketing money behind it. They need some money to push it. That's why the label spends so much money on marketing. Yeah. That's why, Spotify says that they release 40,000 new tracks a day on the platform. 40,000 new songs a day on Spotify. Yeah. So it's like, even if you're the greatest song ever written, it's going to be amongst the noise of the other 40,000 songs on Spotify that got released that day. Yeah. So how are you going to stick out? Just having a great song, yes, that's step number one. And you absolutely need to have a great song, but that's the baseline. Now, how are you going to get that song to poke out from all the other 40,000 songs that were released this day?
Yeah, no, that's very true. So let's talk about some practical tips, like in your book, as far as actually getting your music out there. I mean, what was how many was released today on Spotify? You said
40,000 songs 40, a day are released on Spotify. That's a lot of music. Yeah.
That's a lot of music. That's a lot of music. So, I mean, as far as getting your name out there, you talk in the previous book a lot about different tips and strategies and creating like a content calendar and things like that as far as getting your music out.
Yes.
Which I think is really valuable. And honestly, it sounds so simple, but the way you laid it out was very like practical, step by step. And it works. Like when you actually discipline yourself to take these practical steps to actually get your music out there,
that's awesome to hear. Yeah.
You had some good things to share for sure. So what are some ways that people can start to get their music noticed, I guess, online?
Sure. So I think, from the get-go, you have to identify who you're targeting, who your target fan base is, who your target demographic is, your potential fans are, because it's different based on every artist, every genre of music, and every fan. So for instance, if you're targeting only people who are 55 and up, 55 years old and older, obviously you don't want to spend all of your efforts on Instagram and Snapchat. That's not where they live. That's not where they are online. You should be spending most of your efforts on Facebook. That's where they are online. So it's really important to understand that. Similarly, if you're only targeting teens and tweens and like college age kids and early 20 somethings, TikTok, sure. Right. You don't want to be putting all your efforts into Facebook. And so that's like step number one, is identifying who your fans are. And so like I encourage everybody to make a list and write it like an our fans list of just like who you think your target fan is. And maybe you make a list of 20 just like 20 identifiers of who you think your fans are, where they live geographically, sure, but like based on it's like a marketing exercise. It's kind of like, okay, where do they hang out? Are they at coffee shops? Are they at skate parks? What are their interests? What do they like doing on the weekends? How old are they? Male, female, non-binary, like who are they? Who are they? LGBTQ? Are they Christian, Jewish, atheist? Because once you have this list, then you can figure out, okay, now where do these people exist online? Maybe they're in private Facebook groups based on one of the interests that you outlined. Like he's an electronic artist named FM84. You might know him, based out of San Francisco. Yeah. Well, basically, the headline is when his album came out, it shot to number 1 in 3 categories on Bandcamp, including synthwave, pop category, and San Francisco. But also, it it charted on the Spotify viral top 50, and he got, I think, 200,000 streams within the first week. And totally independent artist is like, okay, how did he do this? Yeah. Basically, and he got added to all of these playlists and Spotify playlists. That's why he got 200,000 streams within the first week. He was a part of the synthwave private Facebook group of just other synthwave music lovers. And there were 20,000 people in this group. And he was an active member. He was just a member, just like everybody else. He wasn't incessantly promoting his music. He was just like everyone else. And he's also a graphic designer. And so he'd be posting graphics for his new record, or like just album cover ideas, and asking people their thoughts. So they're kind of in on it. He's like, hey, I'm about to release my first single of my new album, this thing I've been working on. What do you think? Which album cover should I run with? And so people were talking, and he was engaging them. Yeah. And then when the song came out, the whole group kind of felt rallied around his music. Yeah. And so he started with, this is where this audience is. So it's like, once you identify who your audience is, then you look at where do they live online? Are they going to be in private Facebook groups? Are they going to be, on various Instagram accounts? Like, for instance, there's this Instagram account called Pickup Music, and they're all about kind of instrumental prowess, and they feature, it's like jazz, soul, funk is their main genre focus. I need to check that out. Yeah, Pickup Music. And so it's mostly like bedroom artists, bedroom musicians, kind of playing guitar, their instrument or whatever it is from their bedroom. But they have 550,000 followers on this account. And, there's this artist, Corey Henry, who's one of the greatest living keyboard players today. He was in like Aretha Franklin's band, and he's doing a solo thing right now. Yep. And basically when he released one of his new songs, he teamed up with Pickup, this Instagram account. And what they did was basically, in one of Corey Henry's songs, he rips this incredible keyboard solo for 2 minutes. So what they did, this contest with the Pickup community, they're like, okay, we're going to give you the stems to this song, basically the instrumental of this song, with his keyboard solo muted, download the song, and then record yourself ripping a solo during the solo section, because we've muted his solo, and then put it on your Instagram. Put it on your Instagram, hashtag Trade It All was the name of the song. So hashtag Pickup Trade It All, and put that hashtag, and then tag Corey Henry and tag Pickup. And so because of this, it got, I think, a couple million impressions based on all of the people who were posting on their Instagram account a lot of them had tens of thousands of Instagram followers. To download the stems, you had to actually give Corey Henry your email. And so he got thousands of new email addresses for his email list. And then he not only got 20,000 new Instagram followers just in that time of the campaign, but also his song, when it came out, because of all of this promo, instantly shot up on the viral charts. And also he got like a few 100,000 streams within the first month, because it's like, oh, pickup music community is all about instrumental prowess, jazz, soul, and funk. Corey Henry is an instrumental genius. He's one of the greatest living keyboard players. So like, our audience lives there. This is where they live. So once you identify who your audience is, you can find out where they are and where they live. It's not just as broad as, oh, they are on Instagram, or, oh, they are on Facebook.
Sure.
You know, FM84 found him on the Facebook group, the private group. Corey Henry is like, oh no, they're part of this pickup Instagram account and elsewhere, you know. And then I also talk about in the second edition direct marketing, which basically just utilizes Facebook and Instagram ads. And so you can identify where your audience is and run ads, basically like put a quick 15-second video and show this video to people you think will be your fans. And if they like it, they'll swipe through, click through, and then they'll find you on Spotify or Instagram or something like that. That's what the course you were talking about before is, that we're teaching how to do that now. So yeah, those are just some ideas.
Yeah, I love the quote. It says, like, if you're on social media, you're renting your fans. If you have email, then you actually own them. And that's a great quote. And it's true. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to reach a lot of people. And from what you were saying, is a lot of it is just finding that community and finding that tribe to connect with people. And right. That concept, the renting versus owning. I mean, basically any of these social platforms can change their terms overnight, and you lose access to your fans, or you have to now pay to reach your fans, or the platform dies and you lose your entire connection to your audience, like what happened with Vine, or what happened, you know, with MySpace a decade ago. And of course, classic. Who was it? The guy that started MySpace? Tom. Thank you, Tom. I wonder how many friends he still has. I feel that. Right. I know. He was always everybody's friend, right? When you first joined MySpace. He was everyone's friend. So, but you also talk about tips for booking more shows. I mean, for me, and I know a lot of listeners here, they're wanting to play more live shows. Is there any updates with the new book, talking more specifically about that at all? Absolutely. I mean, a lot of etiquette has evolved in terms of how to book live shows. Platforms have evolved. EPKs, I talk about EPKs in the second edition. I didn't even mention EPK in the first edition. Basically, EPK is an electronic press kit. And that's basically you can create, it's just kind of like a one sheet is what some people refer to them as. It's just kind of like this, it's a one sheet, or an EPK, electronic press kit, is basically just a page that you make of all your accolades, music, videos. It's just all the important information that any person in the industry would want to get as a quick glance to who you are, or when you're booking a show. It's, you know, live video and your music. It's right there. It's super easy. It's all on a page. This is, a lot of times people are doing this as a hidden page on their website, because this isn't meant for the public, and it's not meant for fans. This is meant just for industry people. So whether it's going to be a blogger, you can send them that, because it has, you know, some press quotes, it has your press release, all of that stuff, your bios on this. So I talk all about EPKs, and then how to contact talent buyers and promoters, and how to get opening slots. So if you want to open for bigger artists, I kind of go a bit in deeper on how to secure opening tours, opening slots, and then really how to build up, you know, that audience and that touring business. But I always like to say that you should really start local. It's the most important thing is to really find this local community in your local scene, and really cut your teeth locally, because, you know, I use an analogy, you know, you don't join a NASCAR race before you have your driver's license. So you don't want to book a 60-day tour without playing a few shows locally. That's the same kind of concept. You have to become a great live performer. And the only way to become a great live performer is to perform a lot. And so,
I think a lot of artists, especially younger artists, put the cart before the horse, and they start booking all these shows before they're really ready. And they, early on, when you're just kind of getting started and you've never really performed, take any gig and every gig, and honestly take the local charity events, the benefit concerts, play your cousin's bar mitzvah, whatever, like literally play everything and anywhere. Just, you need performance experience. Yeah. And then once you feel comfortable and confident and people are actually like coming up to you with your friends with disbelief in their eyes at like complimenting you at the shows, like, whoa, you're actually good. Yeah. Yeah. Because everyone thinks, I'm here supporting my friend, but it's like, whoa, no, you're really, really good. Yeah. No. You're not listening to me. You're really good.
That's a good feeling. Yeah, it is.
Right. That's when you can then start to book your real shows at the clubs and start charging people to come to your shows. I talk about, unfortunately, the pay to play phenomenon that's really caught on, which I'm very against. Don't pay to play shows. Don't buy tickets in advance and have to resell them. I've heard of so many horror stories, especially in the last couple of years, of they call themselves either promoters or talent buyers or whatever. They're shady ass people who just like say, oh, you want to open for Wiz Khalifa at this club in front of 1,500 people? Venmo me $1,000 and I'll put you on for 15 minutes. Yeah. No, they Venmo him $1,000. He shows up. Oh, guess what? He shows up to the club and they're like, we don't know who you are. We've never heard of this promoter. You're not on the bill. Get out of here. You can't even get in. Oh yeah, no, they're straight up scams.
That's so it's like sketchy, man. That's sad.
It's like, yeah, right, because artists, but that's the problem, is that if artists don't educate themselves, they don't understand that this is not how it works. Right. And so they think it's like, this guy says I can open for Wiz Khalifa if I pay him $1,000. No, dude, you're not going to open for him. And if you think you are, you haven't done your research. So you show up and of course you're not on the bill. Of course this guy just scammed you for $1,000. Like, don't be an idiot.
Thanks for Venmo. And his account on Venmo disappears a week later.
Right. Of course. So it's like, you got to do your research. You got to learn a little bit before you start. That's the cart before the horse. You got to get the education and understand how this works.
Well, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think any real promoter is going to want to see you have some success first if they're going to book you for such a huge show like that, or actually see you live or know that you're good enough to actually do it rather than just forcing you to pay for it.
No, that's absolutely true. You have to understand the purpose of why you're getting put on as an opener. The reason that you are put on the show as an opener, as a local opener, is to bring people out. Otherwise, the artist would bring on their own tour support. They would bring on their own artists as their opener. So if they're asking the promoter for a local opener for an artist in town, that's because they don't think they can sell out the club on their own. And they need that buffer in the audience for maybe you can bring 50 people. So it's, that's the reason they're putting you on. It's not because, sure, they want to match the vibe and the energy of the headliner and they want your music to be similar and all of that, but they're not doing it to help you out. They're doing it because you can bring an audience and you can bring a crowd. And so they are expecting you to pull your weight and they're expecting you to bring your audience. And so you really want to remember that going into it. I think artists are like, oh yeah, they're going to put me on because they think I'm the most amazing musician. No, come on,
dude. They never heard your music before. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, in your book, you're very specific about even how to get those opportunities. Like you talk about crafting an email template and who to send that to and how to find that person. And so that's one thing I keep talking about the book because, I invited you on here for a reason because I really believe that you have some amazing things to share with a lot of artists who are wanting to start playing shows or just getting started, don't know where to start. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah, I would definitely encourage anybody to go check it out. We'll include links in the show notes as well. And people can buy that as an audiobook on Amazon. Can you get that on your site? Where else can
Amazon is a great way. Make sure you're looking at the second edition on Amazon. That one's released November 5th, but the pre-order, depending on where you're listening to this, is probably already out at this point. I'm currently recording the audiobook as we speak, so it will be out wherever you get audiobooks, Audible or whatnot as well. That's coming out a few weeks after the hardcover comes out. But yeah, and it'll be on Kindle and all that stuff. So wherever you get books, you can find the book.
I wish I would have bought the hardcover version because I had to like.
You still can.
I keep yelling at Alexa to rewind.
I've actually, there's quite a few people who've told me that they bought all three versions. They bought the audio version, the hardcover, and the Kindle version.
Wow.
So they just have it wherever they are, and they can highlight and they can bookmark and all that stuff. I'm
that's
like,
what we call
yeah.
super fans, and we love those, right? Those are the best. Those are the best.
Exactly.
But I also want to talk briefly about Brassroots District.
Sure.
What's happening with that? That's your band. It's you and another girl.
Yeah, so the permanent members, so it's me and Nina Story, but we are actually playing, we have alter egos in this project. So the lead singer of Brassroots District is not Ari Herstand, it's Copper Jones. So I play Copper Jones in the project, and Nina plays Ursa Major. And it's a 10-piece funk soul project. We perform around LA. It's a throwback 1973 funk soul ensemble. So this band exists in 1973. We don't exist in 2020. So we everything that we do is a 1973 funk soul experience. And so when you come to a Brassroots District show, you dress up. We have people walking around from the era. We have a writer from Cream magazine who's going around interviewing people about their experience and about the show. We have a Nixon protester, like a hippie protester, screaming to impeach Nixon. We got awesome. So it's a full experience. But yeah, we do all original music. So it's all. We have a record. We have 4 songs out right now. A record's coming next year, it's all original stuff, but it's of that era.
That's great, man. I love it. Yeah, I'm all about the funk these days too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe one of these days I'll get to go out there and catch a show in LA for sure.
Hell yeah!
I'm actually going to be down there for the Ableton certified training rounds in January. So if you have a show in January, maybe I'll let
you know.
Yeah,
hell yeah,
do, for sure.
Nice.
It'll be a good time. But yeah, man, I know you're busy. Just wanted to rep your book and see your face.
Thank you.
And say hey, and hopefully get more people out to check out the book. It's coming out November 5th.
Coming out November 5th. But pre-order is available now. It's actually the #1 best-selling music business book on Amazon right now, the new edition. Dude, so it's the pre-order is going strong. Thank you.
For good reasons. Absolutely. Cool, dude. Well, hey, I'll let you go. Thanks for coming out on the podcast. I'll have this posted. And dude, I'll see you another time very soon.
All right. Sounds good. Cool. Thanks so much, man.